that repetition of bringing our awareness back to, oh, I'm thinking again. That is what we're trying to do. We're letting the mind basically go into itself, or let's say fall into itself. When we go to the root of ourselves, before the mind, we find something very beautiful. And love and unconditional peace arising there without any effort whatsoever, without you needing to do anything. I've been meditating for almost 7 years now, and I get a lot of questions about how can I get deeper into meditation? And this is it's an interesting question to answer, because we're already taking ourselves further from the goal of meditation, if there is a goal to meditation. It's a very westernized idea to try and think of ourselves as like a performer of meditation, because it's basically the opposite of what meditation is supposed to be. But it is valid to ask this question. Of course, there are different type of depths we can go to, but when we're trying to go deeper, that is where we're going to hit the paradox, and it's actually counterproductive to what we're trying to do. But I'm going to cover in this video how we can go deeper into meditation, and different types of meditation, and how I've started, and how I used to progress, and what type of meditation I'm doing right now. So there are 3 different types of meditation, and the deeper we go into each stage, let's say, there's going to be less and less doing. There's going to be less and less doing the deeper we go into meditation. Because when we are newbies to meditation, it's going to be very, very difficult for the mind to not want to try and do something. Because that is the only thing that the mind can do. The mind always needs to have something to do. And so what meditation does is it teaches us to not needing to do something all the time. To actually disconnect from that ancient habit of our mind that is always stressing us. Meditation teaches us to disconnect from that, or detach from that, and to just be. But the first 2 types of meditation is actually a type of doing. But what we're doing is that we're conditioning the mind to just let go and relax more and more and more into our true nature, into who we truly are, before the mind. But the first stage we can call the progressive path, and that is basically taking our attention from our mind, our thoughts, into one thing. So we're going from ourselves as the subject to an object. We're focusing our attention on one object, and this can be like the breath, which is very common. You've probably heard about that. Focusing our attention on the breath, or on a mantra that we repeat in our mind, a sound, a candle flame, or something. We focus our attention on one thing instead of the mind's 1,000 thoughts going back and forward, right? And so this is how I started, and there are a lot of good apps that can help you with this, to just focus on your breath. So basically, you just put your awareness on your breath. And the obstacles that's going to arise here is that in the beginning, I felt completely stupid. I couldn't sit down for maybe like more than 1 minute, and then my mind started chatting like, look at how stupid you are, and what are people going to think, and all these things, all these thoughts that the mind comes up with to try and distract us from just being us, right? But focusing our attention on the breath is very effective, because, like I said, it gives us one thing to focus on instead of focusing on everything that's happening in the mind all the time. And so what's going to happen here is that we're gonna zone out all the time. We're gonna be occupied in the mind. We're gonna start thinking about tomorrow, and we're not gonna realize that we're still sitting here meditating. It's basically we're gonna go unconscious. You can call this going unconscious when we are trapped in the mind. We're thinking that we need to pay the bills, or I should have said that in this conversation, or we're thinking about the past or some activity in the future. But every time we catch ourselves thinking, that's us bringing ourselves back to awareness. So it's common that this is going to bring up a little bit of frustration, like, oh, now I'm thinking again. And in that moment, though, we're bringing our awareness back to us. We're catching us that we are thinking. So every time we do that, that is a victory. So it's important that we remember this, that every time we catch ourselves when we have gotten or flied away somewhere in our mind, right? That is a victory, bringing our attention back to the present moment, to us. Every time we do that, that's like counting the reps in the gym, we could say. That repetition of bringing our awareness back to, oh, I'm thinking again. That is what we're trying to do. And so when we can stay in meditation long enough to be able to not fly away in thought, that is when we can say that we're going deeper into meditation. The second stage is called the direct path. And this is something that got invented by an Indian sage called Ramana Maharshi during the 1900s. And he was like a very high saint. He was a brilliant man. He was self-realized, to say the least. But he invented this technique of the direct path. And so instead of going from the subject, us, to an object, we're going from subject to subject. We're letting the mind basically go into itself, or let's say fall into itself. And self-inquiry can be done by asking ourselves, who am I? Who am I? Who is looking out through my eyes? And who has been looking out through my eyes since I took birth, or since I was born? See? So instead of focusing our attention on the breath, we're basically letting our attention fall back into itself. And so with this technique, I started doing this technique maybe like 2 years ago, and it has completely revolutionized the way I see myself and the world. Because when we go to the root of ourselves, before the mind, we find something very beautiful. We find that which we are looking for in external stimuli all the time. But the obstacle here is that the mind in the beginning will start to come up with, like, I am Kimmen, or I'm a man, or I'm from Sweden, or wherever you are from, right? Things that we identify with, the mind will try to identify with. And so everything that comes after the words I am this, I am that, we can be sure that we are not. Because those are just thoughts, those are just words, right? And what we're trying to do is to break the identification with the mind and with all of these thoughts that we have in our mind all the time. So, who is aware of the mind? It's a very typical self-inquiry, direct path question. Who is aware of the mind? Who is aware of the arising phenomena of the body? Emotions, sensations, thoughts. Who is aware of that? You know? And so when we are allowing ourselves to fall into that which is aware, then we will take ourselves closer to our true nature. And that is actually when meditation starts for real. That is where true meditation starts. Because true meditation is not doing anything. Not repeating a mantra or asking ourselves, who am I, or who is looking out from my eyes. It's like doing absolutely nothing. But to be able to get to that stage, we have to, like I said, condition the mind to not be so outwardly focused all the time, to look for an answer. Because the looking for an answer is a massive obstacle that we're trying to get rid of, basically, with meditation. We don't want to look for an answer. We want to become completely comfortable in not knowing what's going to happen in life. We want to surrender that control, that need for control, or thinking that we are the controller of our reality, right? That is the true goal of meditation. And when we are able to, let's say, surrender that need for control, something very, very profound happens inside of ourselves. At least my experience is like there's going to be profound liberation and love and unconditional peace arising there without any effort whatsoever, without you needing to do anything. And so the third stage is called the pathless path. And it's simply just being. Just being. Without doing anything. And this is going to be difficult. It's going to be quite hard to do this for the first time. But the more you meditate and the deeper you go into your journey here, you're going to become more aware of sensations and arising phenomena of the body, like thoughts and everything. And when you become more aware, it's going to be easier for you to acknowledge different bodily sensations that is arising. So one very good practice that I started doing also like a couple of years ago to take myself deeper into the pathless path, or just the sense of being, like getting more in touch with my true nature, is to tap into the sense of touch. The sense of touch. It's a very neglected sense, right? I mean, we don't really focus on the sense of touch, right? Because we're so occupied with seeing things and hearing things. And so we forget, we overlook the sense of touch. But the sense of touch is a very effective way to get into the state of being that I'm talking about, to find our true nature. And so what we can do is to simply, there's so many mosquitoes here. What we can do is to simply feel either our feet or our hands. I usually start with my clients and the people I coach. If you're interested in coaching, by the way, click the first link in the description and we can have a chat and maybe we can work together. But the thing I do with my clients is that I allow them, or I teach them to just feel their body on the inside. And so we start with their feet or with their hands usually. And so if you put your hand like this, and you just start feeling your hand, like start feeling the inside of your hand. You put it down in your lap if you want to, maybe that's easier. And usually people will be able to pick out a certain type of movement in the hand. And the reason it's important to learn to meditate, maybe, before we're doing this is that most of us are gonna still be so identified with the mind. We're gonna be so identified with the mind and with thoughts that we're trying to think about a hand, like visualize a hand. And when I say, feel your hand, they think about a hand, and I say, do you feel your hand? And they say, no, I can't feel my hand, because they're thinking. What we're trying to do is to get rid of the thinking aspect of the mind and allow ourselves to enter the body. So the first stages of, at least the first step of meditation is very good to have an understanding of how that works, so that we can break the habit of just looking for answers with the mind all the time before we start doing this. But if you can learn to feel your feet or feel your hands, and if you learn how to feel the sensations, there's going to be like energy moving. There's going to be, you might feel some movement in your hand or in your feet. I always experience tingles, like a lot of tingles in the hands or the feet. And when I find those tingles, I simply spread those tingles up my arms or calves, shins, up towards the knees. You know, you see what I'm doing? Can you feel what I'm doing? Because when we're entering this stage, we're not thinking, right? If you put your awareness or attention in your feet and you just feel your feet, right? Your feet doesn't care about what's happening in your head, right? And your feet doesn't care about what time it is. And your feet doesn't care about anything, right? So doing this is perfect for breaking the habit of turning to the mind for answers all the time. We're actually gonna feel ourselves entering a very peaceful state here when we do this. And so the goal with this is to just allow ourselves to feel our entire body like this. To enter the physical dimension instead of the mental dimension, because we get stuck in the mental dimension of life. Humans exist in two dimensions, the mental dimension and the physical dimension. The problem is that we live in the mental dimension. We have forgotten what it's like to live in the physical dimension. We're never tapping into what our body feels like. Like, what does my feet feel like right now? What does my hand feel like right now? Like, if we really focus on that, we're gonna feel some tingles and some energy and some aliveness moving in the body when we get really good at this. But we forget to do that. But when we learn to do this, when we learn to exist in the body again, when we learn to exist in both dimensions, the mental dimension and the physical dimension, as in the body, a very cool side effect is gonna happen. And first, we're gonna detach from time. We're not gonna be living in psychological time as much, because the body doesn't exist in time. Time only exists in the mind. So stress and worry and anxiety and all of those things are naturally gonna start falling away, because those things can only exist in the mind. Where time exists, they come from the past or from the future, right? And so when we learn to just be in the body, to be in the physical dimension, something very profound happens. We learn to shift our state of awareness. We realize that I am here. I am here. I'm not here. I'm not in the future. I'm not in the past. I am here. And when we are here in the body, for me at least, magic seems to happen. And so this meditation technique, the pathless path, has been amazing for my own evolution. And one of the reasons I focus so much on this specific technique with my clients, because it's such a profound shift. When we understand this and when we can learn to walk around and be in the body in everyday life, all our problems are almost gonna start falling away, because we realize that problems can only exist in the mental dimension, in the mind. And it's a very fascinating concept when we understand it, because it works. It absolutely works. But if you're still watching, I want to say thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe. I'm trying to make it to 1,000 subscribers. Don't forget to like and comment as well. It makes me very happy. I reply to all the comments. I try and do my best to just do that all the time. And yeah, I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.